Welcome to Women in the Arena podcast, the podcast celebrating women doing extraordinary things in plain sight. I'm your host, Audra Egan, and our mission is to elevate the value, strength, and resilience each woman brings to the world. Without further delay, let's go ahead and start the show. Welcome in, everyone. This is Audra Egan, and this is the Women in the Arena podcast. I wanted to jump on here really quick and say thank you. I want to thank you for your support and your encouragement. I'm working really hard every single week to bring you meaningful conversations that will inspire you, encourage you, and unite us all as women in the arena doing extraordinary things in plain sight. Let's go ahead and start the show. Welcome, everyone. I am so glad you're here. I have an amazing guest for you today. She is a vice president of one of the world's largest financial institutions. She has worked for over 20 years as a leader in Fortune 500 companies like Citigroup, Mr. Cooper, and Chase. But in addition to her impressive corporate career, she has served as the adjunct professor teaching strategic planning and policy. She's been the Toastmaster president for 2 chapters, and she is an author of 9 professional development and career branding books. It is my pleasure to introduce you all to Latrice Collins. Latrice, thank you so much for being here, and welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Audra. I'm excited.
I am very, very excited to talk to you. But besides your very stellar resume, tell us a little bit more about yourself so we can get to know you a little bit better.
Yeah. Well, I'm originally from Chicago. So I was born and raised in Chicago by my mother. She's the hardest working woman I had ever seen. When I was a child, she worked 3 jobs while putting herself through college and raising 4 girls. So you can only imagine what our household was like any given time. And so from there, I loved being in Chicago and, meeting so many different people. And then I went through my bachelor's degrees in Chicago, and then from there, I moved to Texas, where I am now, when we had a family crisis occur with my sister's husband getting sick. And I said, I want to move and be where I can help. And so I came to Texas, and we grew even more as a family. It ended up, my entire family moved to Texas after that. So now all my sisters and my mom live here in Texas. We're all within 10 minutes of each other. So excited about that. And it's from my move to Texas where I ended up getting into the financial institutions and with the Fortune 500 companies. I started off in healthcare and then I switched over into finance. Really big, kind of a big difference. But man, what an eye-opener to understanding different components of this world and different components of corporate America. Oh, yes. And first of all, let me punctuate here that you come from a family of very strong women and your mother has raised 4 very strong, independent women. And it's pretty impressive that you all picked up from Chicago and moved all down to Texas to help one. That in and of itself speaks volumes. Yeah. I have to, I absolutely adore my family, and you're right. I get to show pictures at times of my sisters. They know it doesn't take anything for somebody to say something. I say, here's my sisters, and it's exciting because they're all brilliant and they're all beautiful, heart and spirit, and they all care about people and life. And us moving to Texas it truly was a family just trying to stay together, and a family that was dedicated to how can we show our love for each other and our strength for each other. And we do that with proximity. And my last sister moved, I went through cancer a few years back. And my last sister, I never forget, she showed up on a holiday one day and she kissed my forehead and she was like, hi. And I was like, Mitra, and, and and after that, that's my nickname for her. And but I think within a year or so later, was selling. She was like, "I'm out. I'm selling, and I'm coming to Chicago, to Texas." So she literally lives about 3 minutes away from me. So my strength is literally, God in my family.
That is a pretty powerful strength. And you and I have talked before, and we talked about personal strength, and we've talked about your story. And you had mentioned earlier in your introduction about you becoming into corporate America and how it started in healthcare and then went into banking and finance. But what we want to talk about today is your journey in becoming visible. So first, before we talk about what that journey was like, would you explain to everybody what becoming visible is?
Yeah, absolutely. So I realized early on that I wasn't being seen by people I wanted to be seen by. So any one of us knows what it's like to be in a room and no one sees you. And sometimes that's a boardroom. Sometimes that is, just in your office or just at any location. And you realize I'm not seen. I'm not valued. I am not a person that they want to promote, advocate for, or to move forward. And I started learning way before I got to Chicago. I started starting to see how people saw me differently than I saw myself. And even though I was making efforts, the efforts I knew of from my experience, I was making strong efforts to be this person and to grow to be that person that they hire or they promote or they went to for conversations. Even though I was making those efforts, I was realizing that I was invisible. So two things. One, that started the fire into trying to identify, how do I help people see me? And then later in my career, I was blossoming and so forth, but I started seeing other people who worked really hard and they were really smart, but they could never get promoted. And I started noticing a pattern of that, trying to figure out what is it that's happening with people that you can hear them. And it's all walks of life. But you can hear them and you can hear them talking, and they just can't figure out how to break through. And I'll tell people any given time, if I hear a couple patterns, I realize they don't see you. You have to identify how can you change that dynamic and become seen in a positive way. So it's those kind of experiences that really help me say, how do I help people to be able to be seen for the value that they bring to the table?
Well, I want to talk about your journey of becoming seen or becoming visible. But what I want to emphasize here is that I have felt invisible. I have felt that I have been bringing my best self, but still not being seen for my value. But I've also seen people around me being in that same situation, that they have been bringing them best selves as they saw it, that they were putting forth so much effort, but still not seen for their true value, which is why I wanted to have this conversation, because I think it's going to resonate with a lot of people. In your journey of becoming visible, it started with a really interesting event. Will you walk us through what happened when you realized I need to elevate my game?
Yeah. I remember early on, I was, either early 20s or teens, and I was looking for a job, and I was told this particular company is hiring downtown in Chicago. And I got in the elevator and, I had put my best foot forward. I'm telling you, I had a suit on, tried to have my hair done right. And I'm on the elevator trying to get up to this top floor where HR is to interview for this position. And so I asked the ladies who were in the elevator with me, they don't know me, but there was two ladies in the elevators with me. And I asked them, was HR on a certain floor, 19th floor or something? And they looked at me, and they so clearly, they looked at me and they looked down at me and they kind of snuffed me off and they said, yeah. But then right after that, they started smirking about me. So now you know the size of an elevator. So it's not like they're trying to be quiet really about it. But they started saying things like, she thinks she's going to get get a job in this company, or look at her and look at her hair and look at her sleeves, because my suit had rolled up sleeves. I don't know if you all remember, but back in the day, you wear a suit and you might roll sleeves up because they didn't fit your arms are too short. But
I do remember.
But they started down this path of, they were just really, really ridiculing me while I was on this elevator. I mean, to the point where I felt so incredibly small. And I started thinking, they started talking about with my split ends of my hair and, just not put together and unkept. And I thought I had put the best foot forward. I thought that surely they will see me for dressing this way and doing this way. But it really crushed me to have people saying this, and they were totally together. They were totally refined. And to have them talk down and so openly belittle me, that it shook me to the core of trying to find a job and feeling like I was inept and not valuable enough to even apply.
I think that was, first of all, that must have been, as you explained, a crushing experience. But in that moment, you had two choices.
Yeah.
You could have allowed it to crush you and your story ended there.
Mm-hmm.
Or you could use that as fuel to propel you forward. And that is exactly what you chose to do.
Yeah.
What did you do to do that? You didn't. Yeah. It's amazing what you can do when you don't have a choice.
Yeah, exactly. So now understand. So I had to take a step back and say, oh my gosh. And at first I was crushed. At first I was, and think about it too. I'm a teenager. I am in my late, either 19 to 21. So I'm young and I'm impressionable. But I remember going home, and besides being crushed, I had to stop and ask myself, is there any truth to what they said? So, some things were their opinion and it was just mean-spirited, but, maybe I shouldn't use foam rollers. I mean, so it was one of those things that all of a sudden I said, you could do better with your hair, or you could do better with these certain things. So that was one of my first steps in saying, listen to the message, take what you need to take, remove all the rest, right? And then later, just a couple of years later, I was in college, and I was at, I'm not going to say my college, but I was in college, and I was not a good writer early in my career. I mean, early in my life, I was just the worst grammar. I just really was. I didn't know it at the time. But I submitted a paper, and one of my professors gave me a D-, and he wrote on my paper that I would be a failure in life, but knowing you'll still try.
Oh my gosh.
I never told you that story. Sorry. But I saw that. Oh my gosh. I cried. I went home, my mother, and I showed her the paper with the D- and what he said. And, my mama, she was protective there. She wanted to go to that university, and I'm like, no, I'll figure it out. And so, it was hard to figure out because I didn't understand what was wrong. He was saying, you don't have a flow, you don't have this, you don't have that. And I didn't understand what flow really was. So I was like, I don't get flow. And he was so busy yelling at me about it. I'm like, I'm just trying to get what you're saying. Well, I had to take a step back again and say, okay, learn flow. How do you do that? Building outlines, this and that. So I started learning about how to write with flow. And then I started learning about how to, taking more classes on making sure it was written grammatically correct and things like that. And it just kept building. So from there, I ended up doing exceptionally well in college, but it was just because I just was so determined, to, regardless to what they said, how do I move forward? And, and that message kind of kept going. I was told in one of my careers, I was a high-ranking corporate person, and I didn't, two things was happening in my career. One thing is I moved into another kind of industry. So that was different. I moved to another part of the country. That was different. And they didn't particularly care for me back then. Now, this was a lot of years ago, but they called me a Yankee, and they said I didn't fit because my voice was too deep. And I didn't, and they were angry with me because when I'm articulating, my words weren't always correct, or my enunciation wasn't always correct. I had a dialect, an African-American dialect. And so they were just like hammering me on things. And I was so not used to that because I was successful where I came from. And now I get into this role. And I mean, I felt like I was being punched from every direction.
But you came as a fish out of water, basically, because you moved from the East Coast to Texas, which is a cross between the Midwest and the South. And definitely different than Chicago. And so they were judging you through their lens when you were being successful in your environment from where you had come.
That is right. That is exactly right. And now I'm in this new environment. And understand, listen, so when you're in Chicago, everything's pretty fast moving, right? And you don't waste a lot of time with fluff. That's just in the culture. You get things to happen. When you go to the South, it's very different. So not only was I in Texas supporting the Floridas, the North Carolinas, and so forth. And so those were my regions. And they would get frustrated because I didn't ask how Jimmy was doing. Jimmy broke his arm, and she didn't even bother to ask. And I'm like, I didn't even understand. I didn't even understand that, right? But so I say that because it was a very difficult fit. I mean, extreme. I had never seen anything like it, where I was attacked so often, so openly, on so many different angles. And, one even said, when the day he met me, he said, "Oh, you're going to have a hard time with our company. You're smart. You're educated, and you're Black. Good luck." And he walked away. And I'm looking at him like, wait, can you say that? Can you?
Yeah. So you're here once again, you're at a pivotal moment, and you have two choices.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that you took this as a launch pad, and as you have made a habit, in now a lifelong habit, you decided, what can I take from this? What can I do next? So in this process, where were you and what were you developing at this time?
So that's a great question. So Audra, I didn't hit that point at this point. When I was there, I forgot about things like that. And I tried my best to make them happy. And I tell you, I did everything in my power. I was walking on eggshells. I was trying to figure out how to do the right things for them. I did take myself back to college again to learn even more about whether it's grammar, whether it was, what things were I missing. So I did do that. But even with doing those things to try to enhance myself and try to be everything they wanted me to do, it still wasn't working. I still was kind of second class. And what, this is one of those things where I had to figure out, and this was probably the life's biggest lesson for myself. I was trying very hard to please people by assimilation. I was trying to become that kind of robotic person that they were saying I needed to be. And this was a turning point for me, because the reality is, when you're not being yourself or true to yourself, you're lost internally, right? Because you can't really be anybody but you. So when you try so hard to be what everybody else wants, you start losing your own identity. And so
Isn't that the truth? I mean, how many of us have been there that, I'm trying so hard. I'm trying to be everything that they're wanting me to be, and it's still not working. I think you just said it. It's because you're at war with yourself, and you're not being true to yourself, because there's only one of you and only one of somebody else. And you're going to be a terrible somebody else, but you're going to be a fantastic you.
Right, right. And the reality is, here's the deal. When somebody is trying to be a puppeteer and they want to make you somebody else, right? They don't even know what that looks like. So they're going to keep changing the dynamics. Oh, yeah, but you should do this as well. And you should do this as well. And you don't do this well enough. And if you keep trying to change and forge and change and forge, you become so miserable. Internally, you become miserable. You end up hating your job, your frustration in your family, right? Because you are being lost trying to be somebody else wants you to be. And you can't even be visible because you're not resonating to be visible, right? You're not resonating as your own individual. So this is where I learned my biggest lesson, Audra, excuse me. I remember at one point, things were going south and you could feel it. It was just going south. And I was sitting at home one day and I said, you've tried this, you've tried that. I did that self-talk, and you've educated yourself in this area and that area. Where you need to make improvements, you've done it, and it's still not enough. So here's your reality, Latrice, because I was always afraid of losing my job, right? Everybody's afraid if you're the single income in your household or major income or whatever it is, you're terrified of that. That's not new. But I remember saying, you know what? If I'm going to go out, I'm going to go out being me. I'm just going to go out being me. I was really good at what I did when I was in HR. I was good not just because of my bank of knowledge when I was in Chicago. It wasn't just my bank of knowledge of laws and strategies and things like that. I was good. I knew how to think. I knew how to respond. I knew how to look and find gaps and bridge gaps. I knew these things. And I was sought out for what I knew. And so I had to stop and say, well, wait, but are you being that same person here? Or have you quieted your own voice? Because
oh my goodness,
one or two people, right?
Wow. You had to really go deep inside and to find that, because you were tearing yourself inside out.
I was. And then I realized, and understand, I thought that for various reasons. I'm not invited to the meetings. I can't necessarily go to the certain floors. It's just all these things where nobody sees me. I'm the equal to 10 people around me, but no, I'm not seen, right? And the reality to me is people rarely value what they don't see. They just rarely value. If they don't see something, if they don't see, and so if they don't see me, they can't value you. You see what I'm saying? So
yeah.
So this is the point when I had to finally say, you know what? Hey, Latrice, just be you then. Be you. Now, this doesn't mean I get to come in and go crazy, but it does mean I get to just be authentic to Latrice. Enhance me where I need to be enhanced, but be authentic to myself. So I started doing that. I started coming into the office. I started, I would speak now. I would speak more to people and so forth, but I was a little more direct because that's me. And I was clear on my points. I did my work. I was excellent at the work I did. And so from there, I'm like, you know what? Be you and be strong on you. Now, whoa, one other point. I've got to tell you the story. So sorry. Give me a second. And that was, I remember at one point I was responsible for the Black History Month program. I was one of the co-chairs of setting up these events. And we were able to invite the highest ranking African-American to our event. And so we're all excited because getting this man to show up as CIO of this company to show up, whoo, that was huge. And so he gets up and we have a packed room, hundreds of people. I'm all proud. And he got on the microphone and he said, in Black History Month, mind you, he said, and he was African-American, he says, I don't look at myself every day and say, hey, I'm a black man. I don't shave and say I'm a black man. He said, I don't look at myself that way.
Did that hush the whole room?
Oh, yes. Oh, my gosh. Wait, it hushed the room. I'm in the back like, what has happened? I'm clutching my pearls. I'm like, oh, my gosh.
What is he doing? What is he doing? What has just happened?
Right. Who did I invite to speak? And I was so floored because at first I was hearing that as he was not enveloping his true self, right? And then he said, here's what I did. He said, I focus every day on how to bring excellence to the table. I focus on everything that comes through my hands are a level that people know it doesn't get better than this. He said, because when you bring excellence to a table, people start not seeing your differences, but they see you and the value you're bringing to help them with their bottom line.
That's it right there. That
was a game changer.
That should be a game changer for everybody. They don't see yourself as what you look like, your physical presence, your gender, what have you, but what are you bringing as a value to your organization, to your firm, to what have you, and are you bringing excellence?
Yes. Listen to me, Audra. I mean,
what a pivotal moment.
Woo! It was a woo, because remember before that, I had been thinking through, okay, they said he did enhance some things. Is there truth to it? Yep, there's truth. But it wasn't about bringing excellence. You know what I'm saying? It was just about, yes, do you need to enhance in some areas? I tell you this, when I heard that, it became a different level game changer. So now I'm in this role, like I said, I'm still, they want me to, assimilation is being pushed. And I know how to bring excellence now. Listen, I just said, okay, here we are. The bottom line is, if they're gonna move me out of this organization, they need to move Latrice out, not the puppet of who I have, of what people trying to make me. It's not about assimilation. It is about bringing excellence, and that's what I'm bringing. So so my conversations just started changing. I started changing, right? And so, when I would speak to leaders, my confidence just sounded different because I knew what I was talking about, right? And so, now I can, look at this page, do this and that. Nope, you're not going to get that information. Let me tell you why. I mean, it was just boom. I just brought it. And not in an arrogant way, it's important to say. I was never condescending to anyone. It was always just very, I have this, I hear you. I could listen to leaders and say, hey, John, if I'm hearing you correctly, this is what the pain point is that you're dealing with. And so this is what you're needing help with. Yes, because they want to hear that you heard them, right? When I started being able to say, hey, listen, I'm thinking I'm hearing what you're saying. Is this the issue? That's the issue. Can I make some recommendations? Can we consider these certain things? To the point when now leaders are asking for me to come to meetings. They want me to show up. And I remember one of my bosses said, he used to ride me like crazy. And he said, so yeah, things are different because people are asking in meetings. I said, And he says, so what changed? He was so proud because he was thinking it was him, this man who did everything he could.
Of course he did.
The guy who crushes you all the time, the guy who yells at you in front of people, that guy.
Oh, yeah.
So
we all have met that guy. Every single one of us has met that guy.
Yes. Well, that guy, him and I it was special because, one of the times he yelled at me in front of people, I just closed the door and I let him finish. And then I let him know, answered his parts he was talking about. And then I said, let's talk about what's never going to happen again. One is you ever yelling at me again in front of these people. That's not going to happen again. And he looked at me. I was just calm and said it. I said, it's not. Absolutely not. That is sub-level human. It is not necessary. Anything you ask for that you want me to perform in this job, I can do it. It's just, if I don't know how to do it, I'll learn it, but I will not be spoke down to, especially not in front of people again. That's unacceptable. And he looked at me, wasn't happy with me, right, for saying that, but okay. Then the next time we ended up meeting was the time when he's saying that people are requesting me. And I said to him, now I don't recommend everybody say this quote, but I did say to him, he said, what changed? I said, I tell you what changed for me. I stopped giving it darn. And I looked at him, I said, let me explain what I mean by that. I said, I was working so hard to please whatever you or other people were saying that I started losing myself. I appreciate the coaching that you were providing me on things I need to enhance. And here's what I did to enhance myself based on the feedback you gave me. So I only gave him the feedback he gave me that was right. Okay. And I appreciate you telling me that, because I would have gotten better in that area. So I appreciate that.
Well, like
Or
you said in the beginning, is you took what you needed and left the rest.
Yes. And then
they're asking for you. They're asking for you because you saw them. When you were explaining to me that they're asking for you, what you had said before that is that you acknowledged them and you saw them first.
Yes.
And then therefore you could bring value so they could see you.
Yes. Now, can I talk to that point? I know we're pushing on time, but I want to talk to that point, because I think right now in our country, there's so many things happening right now that it's so pivotal for us to get this part. When we start talking about becoming visible, and I hope you don't mind me saying this part, but I think right now is what we're seeing is a shakeup happening in the country, because people have felt invisible. They have felt like, you clearly aren't seeing me, because these negative things wouldn't be happening if you valued and saw me, right?
Yeah.
Because if you value me, you couldn't hurt me this way. If you value me, you couldn't let other people hurt my babies. If you valued me, you would see what I'm bringing to the table and either help, promote, or at least stop and defend, right? If you valued me.
You should see my face, because I am just aghast at what you're saying, because it hits home. If you valued me.
If you valued me.
You would see me.
You would. And so here's the real big point I want to make with that, because the pain that exists in people and is existing right now in our country is on two sides, right? There's a pain of people who've been a victim because they haven't been seen. Because they've not been seen as equal or as human or as having rights, whether they don't articulate the same way or look the same way or skin is the same way or their orientation is not the same way, whatever it is. And they're not being seen as being equal in a human way to get the right care. And then there's another side that's been blind. Well, it's like actually three sides, but the other side has been blind. They had no idea. I didn't even know this was happening to you, right? And then there's the part of people who are in some way fearful. And so because they're fearful of differences, when you're fearful of differences, your reaction is naturally built to flight or fight, because it's a fear built in, because you don't know what can happen from that other person because you don't know them. There's such a difference between you and that person that, like any two species who come together who've never seen each other before, they're cautious and they're curious, but they're cautious first, because survival is the first thing you have to do.
It's an innate nature. It literally is built into our brains, that whole fight or flight. And
absolutely
and it's fear of what we don't know, where you see the extreme responses.
Yes.
I would consider myself in the camp of, I just didn't know. I literally didn't. And I know that sounds amazing, that how could you not know this? Because I wasn't raised in an environment like that. And it just didn't occur to me until it became impossible to not see.
Yes.
And I can see the side of why people are fearful, but it's I do see that there's a responsibility of educating yourself and figuring out what don't you know, beyond the journey of what we don't know, because everybody, that's the whole point of this conversation, is that everybody wants to be seen. Everybody wants to be visible. But we not only do we have our own personal responsibility of making ourselves visible, but as human beings, we also have the responsibility of educating ourselves and seeing other people, being open to see other people in because of their differes.
Yes.
Not in spite of them, but because of them.
Absolutely. I mean, that is, if nothing else, I think one of the biggest lessons I had to learn was I had to learn how to hear someone else, right? I mean, that's big, because even when you are the one who's been on a difficult side, right? Even if you're that person, and this can resonate with so many people. You're working hard, you're the subject matter expert, you're putting in the hours, things like the back of your hand, yet you're still not considered an equal or someone credible or someone knowledgeable. You do all the things you think you should do, and the highest you get is adequate in their mind. That's a difficult spot to be in, that no matter how good you are or how much you do, the highest they seem to see you is adequate. Well, part of that goes back to the visibility and the value statement. And the reality of it is, it's both sides' responsibility to be seen or to get seen. But here's the thing to learn, or the thing to take away, take nothing else away, the thing to take away. Part of your growth is your ability and your willingness to hold a conversation. It is your ability and willingness to go to the table and say things such as, I appreciate what you've given me and how you explain these particular parts. Would love information from you on how I can enhance in these other areas. Some people may feel they've done that already. Okay, do it from a different perspective or a different angle, right? If you are struggling in the workforce, people, and this can go anywhere, not just the workforce, but it's humans in all these cases. So to be able to say, you know what, one of the things I recognize is you do X very well, whatever X is, and you're real about it. Because this is not about blowing smoke. It's not about being fake. It's not about trying to manipulate. It is about building true relationships, true communications between each other, so I can feel you, you can feel me. Well, when you open up that door and you say to somebody, if I say, Audra, I really have valued on how well you've been able to start your own business with the podcast and how you're bringing great sources in and so forth. Would you mind being a mentor for me in one of these particular areas? It's something I need to really grow in. And this is real talk, right? With you, as no matter how you feel, most people, now there's always those percentiles on the edges, but most people, no matter how they feel, when a person asks them honestly, if there's an opportunity to be mentored by you in one area, we can do, and the mentoring can be offline, it can be during work hours, whatever the item is that's easy for you. I take 15 minutes a week, or 15 minutes every 2 weeks, whatever, right? But if I can learn from you, then I feel I can grow myself in those areas. Normally what happens is, one, you've honored that person. So you've told them something that you value in them, and it's something that's real that they do. Two, you've opened up a vehicle, a road, a path for the two of you to have a conversation that's different than everything else that you've been doing so far. And three, you have diminished what's called social distance from a sociology perspective. And social distance is, the more we have alike, the smaller the social distance, because we can relate on so many different levels. If we don't have much alike at all, then the social distance is huge. So if I'm from Chicago and you're from Texas, that's a big social distance. If I'm a female, you're a male. If I'm African American and you're Caucasian, it's a lot different. If I was single parent family, you were raised with both parents. I was, low income, you were middle to high income. All those social differences creates this huge void that creates this big social distance between us, to the point a person may not even know how to communicate with me, or vice versa, because the only thing we've seen on a person who fits that characteristics is what we've seen on the news. And then typically that's not in your favor. So there's a fear factor that's built in.
Well, that's how the news gets their point across, is they're selling fear.
Yeah,
really,
yes,
they're selling fear, and
they're sensationalizing it. Yep.
Yeah, It's not in their best interest to close the gap, because if you close the gap, then you eliminate that level of fear. And as we go back to that idea of being visible, what Latrice is saying is that you are reaching out to another individual and seeing them first, so then they can see you. And you, by making that act, are closing that gap and also allowing the opportunity for you to be seen and valued.
Yes.
If individuals would take the time to take a pause and a moment, and as Latrice has said, is to see what we are most similar with rather than what we're most different with, this would be a whole lot easier to get through these hard times. If we could just have dialect like Latrice and I are having, and that we hope that you are getting from this. If we can open up dialect and have the opportunity and being open to being seen, that means yourselves as well, and being open to allow other people to be seen, we can elevate us all.
Couldn't have said it better. Beautiful. Just beautiful.
Latrice, will you come back again? Because I know that we are running short on time and you have so much more to say. And not only just about being visible, but also about closing that social distance. Will you come back another time so we can talk more?
Absolutely. I love this.
I think we would all love it because we need more of this. We need more dialogue. We need more open dialogue, and we need a dialogue where we all feel safe in order to do this and ask questions. Ask the awkward questions. Ask the difficult questions. This is safe. If anybody has questions, please send them to me and I will filter them to Latrice, and I know she has no problem in answering these at all. So and I'm speaking for you, but I know your heart.
Yes, I'm smiling. No, you can't see me back. Yes, I would love to. And let me just say, I just so appreciate that you had the foresight and the vision to create this vehicle, because it feels good. It feels right. I've enjoyed every moment of it, but I also know that your listeners, they get to hear what you're bringing to the table. And it's all designed to see how do we heal and grow. Right. And this is fantastic. I think it's going to be just powerful. I can't wait to hear all your other shows, too. I've been listening. I've been following you. And I think it's just a beautiful thing that you do.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Because my mission is to inspire, encourage, and just spread positivity. And it starts with women. And let's spread it to everywhere else. But Latrice, before I let you go, I ask everybody the same 3 questions, and I am very curious as to what your responses are going to be. I know they're going to be intriguing. So first off, what are you currently reading?
So I am rereading it. This is going to be wrong. I'm reading 2 things. One, I'm rereading Indigo, and that's just a historical romance novel that I just love by Beverly Jenkins. I'm reading that. But then I'm also reading the Book of Enoch. So I just thought I would read one of those kind of Dead Sea Scrolls books and learn even more about Christian history. So excited about both of those.
Those are both good. Really good.
And totally different.
You know what? You got to exercise both sides of your brain. If you're going to open it up, open it all up.
Right.
So the second question is, what are you currently learning?
Oh, wow. So 2 things. One, I am, if nothing else, I am learning the strength of being still and being, and not, and this may sound crazy, but I am normally a person who operates 24/7. And so now I am learning, especially with COVID, I am learning how to be still and be peaceful and be healthy. And that has been just from really focusing on that. I've actually lost almost 20 pounds.
Wow.
I know, right? It's been great that I have, and it's just literally stopping all the rushing, stopping the running, and just slowing it down, just taking that time to stop and learn how to enjoy the moment and how to take care of me even better. So it's been great.
That's a great lesson. Everybody take note, because I think that's a lesson that if anything can be learned from COVID, it's taking better care of you.
Yeah.
So the last question is, what's next for you?
What's interesting? I had kind of taken a sabbatical on certain things, and then I decided recently that I may write. I think it'll be my 10th book, and so I've been really vacillating on that topic, but lately it has come to me that I might write but one more book, but this time be a little different. So not necessarily corporate professionalism, not necessarily your branding, which is what I normally write on, but how do I touch the heart of people, right? So that it doesn't matter where you are, what are you doing, how do I help talk to more people and touch, if I can, more people, that just helps them be able to take that breath and make it that much better, That
is a worthy goal. That is the same goal I have. I'm just approaching it a different way. Latrice, thank you. Thank you. This was an amazing conversation. I hope everybody got that, and I will definitely have you back as soon as I possibly can. But thank you for your time and your generosity of spirit, and you're willing to be authentic and open. It's very important, and it means a lot to me. So thank you.
Thank you so much. I've appreciated it. It's been fantastic. I can't wait to come back on again.
I'll get you here as soon as I can. Thank you, everyone, for listening. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your willingness to be open, and we'll see you again next time.
That's our show. Before I let you go, I have some business that I need to get to. First, I want to thank my guest. I am continually awed at your generosity of spirit and the vulnerability that you continue to bring to our conversations. To you, my audience, you are incredible. Thank you for growing with me, and I hope that I continue to exceed your expectations. And to my team that helps me pull this off every single week. To our composer, Star Diva, who is amazingly talented. To Alan Bruckner, our graphic designer. Thank you for taking my crazy ideas and giving it life. To Savannah Boster, our social media manager. You do this so much better than I ever could. And last, but certainly not least, our producer, my number one son, Gavin Egan. Thank you for supporting your mom with her dream. I couldn't do this without you, kid. Please follow us on our socials at Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram at arena_women. See you next week.
This is just the beginning.
That's our show. I am so grateful for each and every one of you and your unwavering support and your continued belief in this movement that has become much bigger than me, much bigger than just a podcast. It has become this forward momentum that we are all doing together. If you are ready, or you know somebody that is ready to tell your story and share your value with the world, please connect with me. You can reach me at audra@womeninthearena.net. I am so honored and thankful that you will share your story with me, and I'll make sure that it is well taken care of. I will never stop thanking each and every one of you, and I cannot wait to talk to you again next week as we share another woman's story and we celebrate her doing extraordinary things in plain sight. We'll see you next time.
This is just